Have you ever been in a dental office and had a tray full of goo put in your mouth? Well, that's a dental impression, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Impressions are necessary procedures for lots of different dental work, including retainers, dentures, partials, crowns, bridges, night guards, just to name a few. Now, there are several steps in taking a good impression. First, there's tray size selection. Then you have to mix the alginate. You want to keep your patient from gagging during the impression and processing the impression. So first, tray size selection. There are several kinds of trays. There are metal rim lock trays, there are plastic disposable trays, there are triple trays, all kinds. Today we will be using a plastic disposable tray. Now, for tray size selection. Since I do not have a patient, I will use a model as my patient. So, for tray size selection, you want to make sure the tray is slightly larger than the arch and fully encompasses all of the teeth according to Great Lakes Orthodontics. Now that you have the correct tray size, we get to do the fun part, mix the alginate. So, most alginate comes as a powder form like this. First, because it's easy to work with, it's less expensive, and it has a fast set time as stated in the Journal of Conservative Dentistry. So, you want to carefully measure your powder and your water according to the manufacturer's instructions. Typically, the alginate is mixed with a bowl and spatula, but I prefer mixing it in a baggie. There's less mess and less cleanup afterwards. So, you shake your powder into the corner of the bag. You don't want to be chasing it all over the bag. Add your water, and then you want to wrap it up and mix thoroughly. You want the alginate to have a creamy, smooth consistency when you put it in the tray. Once it's fully mixed, you're ready to put it in. You want to just tear off the end of the bag, and then you can fill your tray just like icing on a cake. Now, for my patient, we will put the tray of alginate into the patient's mouth, like so. Now, this is where it can get interesting. Some people have a very strong gag reflex, and I do not want to see what they had for lunch. So, there are a few tricks to the trade to help prevent your patient from gagging during the impression. They include, first, do not overfill the tray. Second, you want to have them breathe through their nose and slide their chin, tilt their chin slightly forward so it doesn't feel like it's running down the back of their throat. Third, you can start with some chair calisthenics. You want to give them commands that require them to think about something besides the impression. Something as easy as lift your leg, point your toe, anything to keep their mind off of it. And third, there are some numbing sprays that can be used to numb the back of the throat so that it helps to deaden the gag reflex. So, now that everybody has survived the impression and it is fully set, you can remove it from the patient's mouth, and we move on to the next step, which is processing. So, once removing from patient's mouth, you want to spray the impression with a disinfectant and wrap it in a wet paper towel. Put it on your tray, and then it will be carried to the lab. Once in the lab, you will mix either plaster or stone according to what your office uses, and it will be poured slowly and vibrated through the impression so as not to get any bubbles in the cast. Once it's full, it can be turned over until set. Now, once the plaster or stone has hardened, it can be removed from the impression, and then you have your final product, a full cast of your patient's teeth, which is ready for any appliance to be made from. So, now that you know the steps in taking an impression, I hope you will be less anxious the next time you go to the dental office for an impression, whether you are the patient or you're a future dental assistant. So today we discussed the steps of taking good impressions. First, trace eye selection. Second, mixing your alginate. Third, keep your patient from gagging during your impression. And fourth, processing your impression. So, as you can see, a trip to the dentist for an impression is really not that bad, as long as you know what to expect and you know the steps that will be taken.